My name is Denise Adelson, and I am from the Rec Center. I'd like to introduce today the session titled Cultivating a Culture of Conversation, Building Skills to Interrupt Ignorance. This is going to be presented by Kamal Carter. He is the president and CEO of A Long Talk About the Uncomfortable Truth. This is an interactive session, so participants will learn the CPR protocol, which is clarify, probe, and redirect. It is a proven skill for interrupting ignorance and fostering inclusive dialogue. Designed for coaches, student athletes, and educators, this session equips participants with tools to drive meaningful change within their teams and organizations. Please join me in welcoming Kamal Carter.
Thank you. Testing, 1, 2, okay, thank you. I'm not used to introductions like that. We usually just jump right in like Saturday Night Live. We don't have a band or, it's just no cold opening, no jokes. So we'll kind of get to know each other along the way, but thank you for the introduction. Hopefully my clicker works. I have been up since 3:45 this morning, so I've been waiting to talk to people. I live in Atlanta. My clock didn't adjust. Usually I get up in the morning, I make my daughter sausage before she goes to school, so that's like turkey sausage time, so I was up. So I'm excited to be here. I'll share with you kind of a little bit how we got started. And let me just skip this for a second, just get right to it. Okay, so this is my good friend Kyle. He and I met in college. We both went to Hampton University. And just like many people that you meet along your journey, if you've known someone for quite some time, you build a friendship that became a brotherhood. When he got married, he had 3 sons. When I got married, I had daughters. And it's important as I'm sharing our background, because this is really mission work. We're not like experts, we're just 2 dads. I mean, that's really, when you look at the beginning of how we started and where we are today, it was just 2 fathers on Zoom. So Kyle's sons grew up in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, which is effectively called the DMV area. But this is the weekend after George Floyd is murdered. And these are Kyle's 2 oldest sons, first time ever going to a protest. And so what's interesting is that, if you notice, they're a little bit taller than most of the crowd. They both play college basketball. But this is the beginning of our origin story with A Long Talk. It's just 2 dads. I call Kyle. I'm in Atlanta, sheltering in place. He's in D.C. He's like, hey, I'm going down to the protest with my sons. They've never protested. He's like the 5'10" bodyguard. They're like 6'5", 6'8". I'm like, bro, what do you, like, you're not a bodyguard. But he went there. They were out there for 5 hours. And what's interesting is that on the way home, his son, who's closest to you in the picture, is kind of putting his earbuds, Elijah, just kind of yelled out in the backseat of his car, just kind of like, almost like as a parent, when you hear someone yell, Kyle thought something happened, like another national tragedy, couldn't figure out what was going on. And it just turns out that Elijah had been posting all day about using my voice for change. First time ever at a protest, peaceful protest. It felt good. I understand kind of just making connection with some historical things. And his senior captain was just coming at him online, like just reposting stuff like, be careful with the looters, bro. We need you in practice after the pandemic. Like, just what are you doing out here burning stuff? Like, it was really bad. So now imagine the betrayal. Here's a freshman. He had already committed to Gettysburg to play basketball. And the senior captain who had kind of told him, I got you, we hoop together in the summertime, and when you come on campus, welcome to the squad. But it was a different vibe that was going on right now. So Kyle is old school. He's like, hey, stop texting, call him. Like, you're gonna get lost, it's gonna get lost in translation on social media. Bad idea. They get on the phone, and first they're calling, then it's on FaceTime, and then if FaceTime had a fight feature, it would have been over. Because his oldest son, Jelani, because the kid just started sending him like a 7-minute video on black people and violence and like propaganda. And they're like, yo, I thought this is my captain. I didn't know, like, we've never talked about this stuff. And so finally, Jelani leaned in and said, on site when I see you, be prepared to defend yourself. And that's the edited version. Click, hung up the phone. So here's Kyle driving. He's like, okay, wait a minute. Now here's the coach who's going to, on their Zoom call, the Monday morning Kumbaya Zoom, you know how it was during COVID, it's not going to go very well. And Kyle is thinking, as a parent, I need to text the coach to de-escalate the situation. So he reaches out to the coach. The coach is BJ. And he texts him, he's like, BJ, call me Sunday morning, tomorrow morning, and we'll talk. You know, I need to let you know something that's going on. 10 o'clock at night, the phone starts ringing. It's BJ. Kyle is like, don't answer. Don't answer to himself like, I know it. What if BJ feels the same way this captain feels? But finally, you know how sometimes the calls just never go to voicemail? So finally, he said, click. What's up, coach? BJ, is this a good time to talk? He's like, no. I told you, call me tomorrow. Like, it's emotions in the house, right? It's just a lot going on. But BJ started, and he said, well, look, Kyle, I'm so sorry about George Floyd. I need you just to know, like, I feel bad. Kyle said, Coach, I'm not mad about George Floyd. He said, and BJ was like, what? He was like, Coach, I'm numb. I need you to understand, like, I can't even feel anymore. I'm mad about the fact that there's going to be another George Floyd in 30 days. You're not even going to know his name. Coach, this has been happening for 400 years. So I don't even feel like I'm numb. He's like, so, like, do you still want to talk to me? Like, Coach, I don't feel like us talking is going to be very productive. And literally, that was the beginning of a long talk. It was a father and a coach. If coach had just hung up and been like, oh, you're too amped up, I don't want to talk to you, it's too emotional right now, none of this would have existed. BJ listened. And Kyle tried to pour out his pain, his lack of expectation, his frustration. He's like, Coach, you sat here on my couch, and you told me that my son would be safe at Gettysburg College. But you're picking a captain who didn't make it safe. And then Kyle just went into the Tuskegee experiments, GI Bill, red line. Kyle just went on a rant for 15 minutes. Coach, listen. And he just said thank you. And they hung up. Next morning, Coach actually sent him a text and was like, you mentioned something about redlining and banks not lending. And Kyle was like, nah, Coach, you can Google that. We're not going to go back and forth. Just Google it. But what I can do is he sent him a video. It was a lecture. It was an 80-minute lecture from a Harvard Law graduate who talked about the history of race in America. And it just put everything in order. Coach watches the video. Boom. Immediately. It changed his whole, he said, I get it. I didn't know. I was in neutral, I was good, non-racist person. No, I got it. He became an activated anti-racist watching a lecture. Not because he posted anything on Twitter. He didn't get a cool t-shirt or a coffee mug. He started doing stuff on Gettysburg College to make it safer for his son. Voter registration, he just kicked in. And this was just off of a straight 80-minute lecture. A long talk hadn't even been developed yet. So, these are some of the programs that he developed for all communities that are marginalized, that are experiencing any type of microaggressions or anything. He said, let's build something that's safe. His other son was playing ball at UPenn. And Kyle was like, okay, let's see what the Ivy Leagues think of this. Sent him the video, the same exact result. 4 years later, UPenn men basketball still does stuff in the Philadelphia area when they're traveling, supporting women-led businesses, all types of organizations. I mean, their community work has gone up 1,000%. So we realized, because we're educators. I taught chemistry for years in Atlanta. Kyle was a high school principal in DC. We figured we need to write a lesson plan about activation, because what was different, people were talking, some people started doing stuff in 2020, then 2022, it died down, but we saw like this ebb and flow at the beginning of 2020 with people moving. And we were like, what if we could activate a nation of people to get out and have conversations versus confrontation? And I'm gonna show you what we just wrote a lesson plan. We're like, this could change our country. And I know, I just gotta be honest. I felt like I let Mike Brown down. When Mike Brown got murdered, I got mad, I felt sad, and I went back to work the next day. And someone just sent me an email, sent me a text, and it was like I couldn't even acknowledge my pain. When Trayvon Martin was murdered and George Zimmerman, and just all, I didn't do enough. I've always served, I've run nonprofits and helped under-resourced students, but I never fought up at the high level that we could bring about generational change in this country until this moment. And I promised myself, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna tell my youngest daughter that we gotta wait hundreds of years. Let's go. So we just put out a call to every coach in America. Because his sons hooped and Kyle volunteered with a basketball program, that produces a lot of top talent. I mean, team takeover basketball in the DMV area. A lot of their kids, one and dones, go straight to the league, or top Division I recruits. Less than 3 weeks, we had not every, but the who's who in coaching basketball showed up on a Zoom call to meet with 2 dads, 2 teachers, one from Atlanta, one from DC. And we talked about how we could build this country into a more perfect union. ESPN was on the call. Grant Hill was the moderator. Every coach watched the video. Boeheim, when he was coaching at Syracuse, entire staff there. Jay Wright, when he was coaching at Villanova, it was 4 national champions. And we just talked, and we said, here's the plan. Let's go, and I'll show you exactly what we shared with them. But it didn't stay in college athletics. These coaches went back to their campuses in places like LSU and Michigan, and I mean, just across the board. They started telling their athletic directors, hey, we were a part of something that we felt we can implement here, and we can show in our teams and our communities, and it just started spreading. And went from there to K through 12 schools, to nonprofits. The Aspen Institute called us, and U.S. Olympics role. It just ricocheted across the country. Now, this is all on Zoom in less than 2 months. From the initial conversation, it was almost like Hamilton. There have been a lot of great Broadway plays that have been written, performed. Hamilton just hit different. It caused a visceral reaction. And so we were just being ourselves and asking people to share their perspectives. And so we wound up in big companies, little companies, hospital systems. It just ricocheted. All the way up to Wharton School of Business. After the pandemic was over, we were traveling heavy, and the last 3 classes at Wharton, I mean, we've just had impact, and I share this with you because it's not limited. Anyone needs to know how to talk, and we need to know how to agree to disagree, and we need to know how to not yell and argue at one another. So whether it was on Wall Street, after we were on Zoom with them, they brought us up to meet with their C-suite execs. Here's their former head of their investment bank and their private bank, wealth manager, James Davies, the man with the splint on his hand. He's like, we got to do this. I know Deutsche Bank isn't perfect, but we can fix this thing. And so he's like, 2023, come back up. We're going to keep working. Fireside chat, let's go. All this backstory is and this is a partnership with the athletic department where all 1,300 student athletes at Yale go through this. It's just, it was all word of mouth. We're not fancy. We're not a big conglomerate. We still, our banners are on Vistaprint. My banner didn't even make it here. Like, I want y'all to get this. It's not rocket science. As Americans, we can talk, and we can work together to form a more perfect union. So I'll just pose this question. It's a rhetorical question. I'm going to show you how our framework works, and we're actually going to get in some groups and practice this skill set. All right. So take a look at that. That's not the kind of feel-good Dr. King quote that they pull out on his birthday, is it? Dr. King had bars. He had a lot of words. He had depth in his writing. Does anyone know the name of the speech they found in his hotel room when he was assassinated? Most people don't know. It was Why America's Going to Hell. Different kind of Dr. King, right? Yeah. So let's talk about this. Nothing is in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. What is that? Well, let me just ask this question, and I'll pause, because we're at a point in time where you're seeing books being banned in this country. I never thought I would see that. And we see this attack. We see this intentional miseducation where we're not allowing our students to learn because there's some books. Like, I read the Diary of Anne Frank. I lived in Tuskegee, Alabama. Read the Diary of Anne Frank when I was 10 years old. I cried. It gave me an empathetic connection to the Jewish, it was unbelievable. But there's some states where the Diary of Anne Frank is banned. If a public school wants to have that book on their shelf, they will get fined. If a public school or a library, so why do you think there's this push to soften up or not like that? It's illogical, but I'll just ask anyone. What do you think it is, or what is the reason, or what is the result, or what's the intention behind the intentional miseducation? And the floor is open. Anyone wants to share? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't have a, okay. But just in case someone, I don't know. Oh, we have people on Zoom, too.
I think the reason is because knowledge is power. So withholding knowledge is withholding power from people who can do things with that information.
Absolutely. So we act like we just moved on, right? We act like everything's corrected. Most people don't even realize, like, do you know when women could open up a bank account without a man's signature in the early 70s? I was born in 74. My brother was born in 72, meaning my mother could not open a bank account without her husband or her father. So most people think we just moved on. No, we have a lot of work to do. So this is the work. How do we have conversations? How do we keep things top of mind and take action? And it's not that people don't want to take action or do anything. Well, I'll ask this question. It's interesting how history has been framed, because even during the civil rights movement, it's almost like, well, I'll ask this. Can anyone name or think of, it doesn't have to be the greatest, any white civil rights leaders that you may know of or learned of in K through 12, not in college, white civil rights leaders? You can just shout it out if you know any. Don't worry if you're struggling. We travel all over the country. We travel 1 million miles a year. I do 500K. My good friend Kyle, we travel that much. Everyone is stumped. There's a few people names that people know. But you think there weren't any people who were, absolutely there were. Thousands, if not millions. But they're not taught. Why is it that we struggle? If I would have asked for white authors, white scientists, musicians, if I was to ask for black civil rights leaders, we'd be here for days. Because, see, we're taught that that's a black people's fight. Same thing with women's rights. Why aren't there men involved in standing up in LGBTQAI plus community? Why don't we have straight, like, we're taught to get siloed, and we're easily separated. How come everyone should know this person right here, Joan Mulholland. She wasn't a president. She wasn't an elected official. She was an 18-year-old who she went to a protest just to see. She had never been to one before in North Carolina. And her empathy kicked in. She was like, this is wrong. Well, when Joan went back to school, you know what they said? Joan, the deans called her. Hey, Joan, at Duke University, we don't protest with the Negroes. That's not what we do. Joan was like, oh, really? Okay. She called her mom. Hey, Mom, I'm transferring back home to Mississippi, Tougaloo, Mississippi. And she got down with the movement for real, with Stokely Carmichael, with Dr. King, like Snick, with all these. Joan was a freedom rider. And I know what y'all thinking. It's black and white. Here's one of Joan's famous photos, first organized protest in Mississippi. And she's sitting at that counter, get all kinds of just craziness. But y'all saying that's black and white. It was a long time ago. Joan's still alive. Yes, I see some of your eyes, yes. My good friend Kyle, he reached out to her son on LinkedIn. She has a movie called An Ordinary Hero on Amazon Prime. He's like, your mom is doing some incredible stuff. He's like, you want to meet her? When next time he was in town, flew in, picked him up. They had dinner. Her house is like a museum. It's like handwritten notes from Dr. King. I mean, it's amazing. And Kyle, he said, Joan, we're going around the country trying to help people be better. Allies, activists, just how do we bring about change? And you know what Joan said? My mama said, when you see something wrong, you do something right. Now, can you pass the banana bread? That's it. It wasn't any, it was simple. It wasn't like, that's it. And so we took that spirit, we have been, Joan, if you just look her up, it's amazing. She's in 2 museums. Like, her, unbelievable. She's the first white member of Delta Sigma Theta. Joan is. Here's her book. We always got to pub her book. She's a good friend of ours now. But I'll show you our framework. We do something in February on our social media a little different. We talk about the hidden histories. We post black people who have done stuff, but we also post a white person, just so people realize that it's not like, do y'all realize the Beatles, their activism, they would not play in front of segregated arenas. So if you wanted to book the Beatles back then, y'all got to, we're not doing that. That's activism. All right, so let me see. All right, Baldwin, ignorance aligned with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. All I can say is if you don't have James Baldwin in your playlist, just Google him. Great author, and brilliant orator. His debates are legendary. He's some great YouTube, however you got to find Baldwin. This is a gay black man speaking truth to power in the 50s. Unbelievable. But we're going to look at how some of this stuff manifests. You've all seen this. We had a discussion in April of last year. But you see the headlines, you've seen the word, you've seen the companies that are leaning in, you've seen the companies that are leaning out. As a matter of fact, I think Roger Goodell yesterday said, no, we're not doing anything, like we're good. You have the CEO of JP Chase Morgan's like, oh, we're good, we're still gonna keep, so most people don't know, but we see the attacks, it's on everyone. It's not just one community. But we're gonna talk about how to push back against all of this. Because this was what Dr. King was saying. See, Dr. King was a wordsmith. His 39 young years, he didn't mince words. He said the ultimate tragedy is when the good people are silent. He didn't say, it was messed up, it sucked, it just wasn't good. He said the ultimate tragedy is when the good people don't say anything. So why is that? Think about that. Like, this man was hit with rocks and bricks. His house was firebombed with his wife and children inside. He was spat upon, stabbed at a book signing. It's like, I signed up for all that. It's the good people just sitting by not doing anything. But why is it? Like, he was talking to the preachers and pastors and clergy, like, I'm out here getting my ass kicked, and y'all aren't even talking about it on Sunday. How good can you be? But I think what it is that people are taught, we just let people say hurtful things. If the guys say something that's sexist and there's one girl here who feels, or one woman who feels this, and no one steps up, she shouldn't have to deal with that stuff. But we just stand by. It could be any community. We just expect people just to say whatever. What if we are upstanders in this right? And I'm going to show you a tool that we teach, and we're going to practice it really quickly. Because I think there are a lot of great people. We just don't have this. No one wakes up and is like, you know what? I want to have an uncomfortable conversation today. That's not what we do. But what if we had a plan for how to engage in that? So here's some thoughts to consider. When someone makes a comment that's ignorant, just hurtful, let's reframe it. You see, Denzel Washington saved our long talk because the first day when we designed this, we were going to battle these coaches. But he posted this on Twitter. It changed our whole paradigm. Everything changed the day I realized you're my lesson and not my enemy. So when someone makes the comment, we usually get so mad. No, let's flip it. What can I learn from you? Like, what? Okay, you're my lesson and my enemy. So the first step is to go from furious to curious. Someone makes a statement. You all would not believe the #1 problematic statement we've heard in America in 2023. Thousands of data points across Division 1, 2, and 3, ACC, SEC. We've been everywhere. And we ask the kids, what are you hearing on campus? What are people saying out loud? You'll never guess the #1 statement. Women need to stay in the kitchen. I'm like, you mean to tell me you have boys, I can't call them men, sitting next to you in class saying this out loud? It wasn't the North, the South, the East, the West. Women, so they say that, yeah. It kept hitting our chat when we asked them, what are you seeing? Kyle was saying that I guess there's an online male toxic influencer, Andrew Tate, who was really popular back then, and it was just this, but that's it. So someone said, we know that's an illogical statement, but the first thing we do, instead of getting mad and just raging on them, we know let's go from furious to curious. We need to find out, remember, they're not my enemy. You're my lesson. What can I learn from you? All right? So the next thing is to listen more than you talk. This person's going to tell you where they got all their ignorance from. All right? They're going to just lay it on display. And your job is just to poke holes in their logic. We're going to show you how. This is the hardest one. People have the right to remain ignorant. It's not your job to save people. It's your job to interrupt. If you want to make problematic statements like that, just don't make them here at CU or make them here at whatever company or whatever school. Just keep the ignorance out. My job, my locker room, my business. I'm not here to change you. I'm here to interrupt and say, we don't do that here. No racism, no sexism, no homophobia, no anti-Semitism, no ableism. We're not doing any Asian hate. We're not doing anything. Keep the jokes to yourself or the comments. Here's how it works. This is called the CPR protocol. When people make problematic statements, we're going to use, and we're just going to interrupt them and ask them to repeat it. Now that sounds totally opposite. We want them to amplify it. You can take a picture of this. Use this, please. Ask them, excuse me, what do you mean when you say X, Y, and Z, whatever the problematic statement is. And don't answer. You're acknowledging, let them know that you heard it. I'm curious, I'm not furious, but what do you mean when you say X, Y, and Z? The person's gonna try, and now either they know you're listening, they go, oh, I didn't mean it that way, or they're gonna hold fast. The next thing is the probing. How do you think it makes black people feel, women feel, Jewish people feel, whatever? How do you think it makes them feel? And usually they're not around when the comments are being made. So now that person has to decide, am I gonna double down? Do I really believe this stuff? Or you know what, you're giving them a choice. But remember, you're not trying to save them. You're just interrupting and checking for their humanity. They got a little bit of humanity, that's fine. Well, what would happen if you supported women versus opposed them? What if, we can make sure there's pay equality. Like, what do you think? I got it. That's the magic. That's it. It's illogical. It doesn't make sense. If someone's saying something, I need to shut them down. I need to read them everything from my podcast. Don't podcast people. They don't care about your podcast. Most of this is rooted in ignorance. We call it a war on ignorance. The job is to interrupt, to get them to see if they care, and to see if they want to move in a new position. So I want to just, with your elbow partners at your table, I just would like for you all to practice this. Just take one round of practice. Someone can make a statement. It could be any problematic statement. We know you don't believe it. I want another person just to use the protocol. Just try it. You don't have to be good at it. I want y'all to see, though, it's possible that this can work. The third person or other people at the table can observe. Just do me a favor and please try. I know it sounds, you're like, Kamal, that doesn't even, how can asking, it really works. It wouldn't work. We wouldn't be here if it doesn't work. So just take some time at your table and just practice really quickly. Just a brave person at the table, just a quick role play, using this exact protocol. Someone make the statement, and someone use this, and then we'll just do a quick feedback in this, about 2 minutes, okay? All right, I actually got a gift of more time. I thought my session ended at quarter till, so this is good. I can get some shares. I'm coming right back here to this table. I want to get some feedback. I know, someone, come on, let's go. I need a quick share. Anyone who wants to share, a volunteer, someone who was really good, or someone who asked some questions. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I'll share the story that we kind of talked through a few days ago. I had a conversation with someone about them not wanting to accept non-binary people and recognizing non-binary people as they, them pronouns. And I went through the process of asking a question like, well, why do you not like that? Their response was, it feels selfish for them to make me change how I've always seen them as a person. We had a great conversation about, and Leland pointed this out, the recognizing question. So that would have been a great opportunity to ask, like, well, what would happen if you just kept trying to recognize them as a they, them pronoun using individual? So yeah, really cool tool. If I have that conversation again, I feel way more prepared.
What's your name?
My name is Megan.
Come on, let's give Megan some snaps. I'll take one other share from one other table, volunteers, you or someone who wants to. Let's see, we're gonna go way to this table over here. I've been looking at their faces while I was talking. I want to get a quick share all the way over here. Any comments about how your session went or any discussions? Whoever wants to volunteer from the table. I see, yes, thanks.
So ours was more of a play on an employee that works for us here that miscounted money once. And it was more of a call out to just acknowledge that she'd made a bad decision or whatever you want to call it, but it was more in jest of having fun with it.
Yes.
I think was the key, and that we're including her in that sense. But then we used some of these as examples as the conversation continue to dialogue through.
Absolutely. It can be used for arguing about the Super Bowl, disagreeing. Like this is a protocol for communication. It's not just about hot topic items or race or whatever. So I'm glad you brought that into the room. Thank you, because I didn't mention that. Really, really appreciate it. For us, we've watched this. I mean, kids not wanting to clean up the dishes. You know, how do you think it makes me feel when you don't want to clean the dishes? Don't you think as a parent, maybe if you had help clean the dishes, maybe you might get extra allowance? You could use this for whatever, but it is a protocol. We feel like, especially in college athletics, a lot of times now there's just, believe one thing, you believe one thing, I'm right, you're right, and it's conversations versus, it's confrontation versus conversations. And if we just lower the tone and are not go from furious to curious, we can talk about almost anything. So there's no way I could have taken 2 hours of programming and condensed it into a 45-minute session to share with you. I just want to get up here and just say, look, we are on a mission to activate people all across this country who want to join a grassroots movement that's going to support communities that are marginalized, support identities that are marginalized, and work together to form a more perfect union. Because what has been happening is just not working. We keep rinsing and repeat or winding up in the same place. But if we learn how to have these conversations and give each other grace, give yourself grace. What if you mess up? What if you get the questions? What if you try and interrupt something problematic 10 times and get it right the 11th time? That's okay. That's better than if, like I said, if two guys are standing here and someone makes the comment, it's for the guy to step up and interrupt the misogyny or the sexist comment. Think about a lot of times that the onus is placed on the people who are receiving this stuff. And what we're saying is we can stand together and stand up for one another. That's what this mission is for us. So that's where you hear the passion, and we're like water. We'll go anywhere. So this is our social media stuff. As I'm closing out, any questions that we have before I want to give, yes, I get my steps in. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So the CPR method that you mentioned could be scary to some people,
Yes.
particularly those who are in existence in a space where that ideology is the dominant ideology. So what kind of encouragement would you give to someone who wants to employ that CPR method but might be afraid to do it or feel some sense of discomfort in doing it?
Yes, so I will always say safety first. A strategy I would give you, if you're in an environment where the ideology is overwhelming, if there are people that you can kind of, it's almost like building alliances. My daughter watches Survivor. She watched like all 20, I don't know how many years or episodes, whatever. But sometimes you have to build alliances, right? If there's people in the space that are open, because number one, if I'm the person that people are making fun of, and I'm the only person on my team with that identity, and then maybe there's one or two other players that are open to like understanding like why these words are harmful or whatever. If I could build capacity, then that's one thing. Another thing is if you just want to rip off the Band-Aid and bring us in and say, hey, coach or whatever, or if you work with an organization or department, bring us in. We'll help separate real quick, because for us, we think the vision is progress. Because our thing is we believe that once people know better, they'll do better. Some of the stuff is not mean-spirited. It's just repeating things that they've seen on social media. Or they've grown up in environments where it's not. My daughter, when she wears her hair curly, oh, your hair is pretty, when it's straight, when it's pressed out. No, it's pretty when it's curly too, when she has braids. But she's in a school where they told Dr. King's kids, we don't want you. You can't go here. In Georgia, one of 4 black girls, like, yeah. But that's okay. But a lot of her friends have not grown. But she's going to wear her hair and know that she's pretty however she wears it. But so we'll come in and have the conversation, help create the culture. But for that, I say protect, if someone's in that environment, you don't want to cause massive, you can build capacity with a few people and help grow it. Or if there's a way to have a large organizational talk, or if there's a leader who's open in that organization or whatever you're a part of or whatever that person's a part of, then we could, that's a good approach. But sometimes you will be outnumbered or people are outnumbered. And sometimes you just don't want to battle. Sometimes I just want to enjoy my peace. But how cool would it be if someone else stood up for that person in that environment? Totally not like from that background, from that identity. If someone else stood up, it was a good day. Yeah, so I say build capacity, but I do say it does take being courageous. With the guys, I don't want to mess up the vibe. Yeah, mess up the vibe. Oh, I was just joking, bro. Okay, what part of the joke was funny? We need people to step up, right? Instead of being like Dr. King, those silent, good. How good can you be? How many people are, I'm just non-child abuse. If we heard of a kid who was getting hit next door or hit or something and we just didn't intercede, this kid needs our help. I haven't been trained in techniques on how to interrupt. No, knock on the door, call the police. Like, you're not going to hit this kid. Same thing with all these sexism, racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, we don't have to be trained. It's not rocket science. Just be good people. It's interrupt. So thank you for that, though. I love that question. No, and I appreciate it. I'm going to keep it real. Growing up black in America, you got to battle. I battle at Starbucks. It doesn't matter. I could be at Starbucks. My mom told me, make sure people, this is back when we used money, put their change in your hand. In Alabama, a lot of times they won't want to touch me because my hand is black. No, you're not going to disrespect me at Starbucks. Like we've learned how to battle. And we choose whether I'm going to battle with you, I'm not going to battle with you, whatever. Same thing with women. Like we can go every identity. When you are outnumbered, you learn how one day either I'm going to go off or I'm just going to be peaceful, or I'm going to make a comment or not. But some people have the luxury of just walking through life and not having to be courageous or even be tested. And so when you're tested, your feelings get hurt. It's okay. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're not going to get dog sick on you. You're not going to get beat by water. No, we need to step up for one another. That is the spirit. And that's why I flew thousands of miles away, woke up at that. We do this work because I'm seeing, let me tell you, I'm going to leave with this. My mother went to the March on Washington when she was little. She's 75 years old. She heard Dr. King. She was right up there in the front row. All her life, she was an activist. I didn't know. She used to hand out pamphlets in libraries. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. We were registering people to vote. I thought you just hand people stuff as a kid. Like, I didn't know she was trying to make change. At 45, she stopped all activism. She's like, it's never going to change in our lifetime. It's just not enough people from all different backgrounds. It's not everyone. It's mostly black and brown people. You can look at the picture at the I Have a Dream speech. She's like, when are we all going to stand up for all these injustices? So she's like, your job is just to survive. And that's why when Mike Brown got killed, I didn't do anything. I was surviving. I didn't think I could change anything on a national level. I did my service, and that was it. No disrespect to my mom. Battle fatigue, I understand. But I keep telling her when I go home, Mom, you haven't met people in Colorado. Luna, you don't know, like there's people, if you would have had Zoom and the internet, Mom, don't stop. And I tell her, there's people that there are so many more great people in this country. And we just get flooded with all this negativity. No, let's go. So I love that question. Thank you for asking, because it does take being courageous. And those of us who are fighting for our communities, we don't have a choice. We're inviting everyone else in. So I'm sorry to go off on a rant. Any other questions? We're done. If not, yeah. Okay. All right, now last thing. If you ever meet my wife, she's like, don't you go out there and scare those people. You get too hyped. You just tell her, oh, no, it was a very calm. It was so relaxed. Please don't tell them that I was hyped like this. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.